The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
Hey, I talk about how nice this Southern California weather is because it wasn't but just a day ago I jumped into my Ford Bronco, loaded it up with everything I was going to need to travel for a couple of days, went down to Pomona and picked up my silver RV, loaded everything in that thing, and I blasted out of Pomona, California, and headed to Las Vegas, Nevada. And getting ready to have a great conversation with American Daredevil legend, motorcycle whiz Robbie Knievel, son of the one and only Evel Knievel. I was an Evel Knievel fan from way back in the day. I was born in 1964, and of course, I guess Evel started really jumping stuff in 1961. The Caesar's Palace crash was in 1967, and all the other stuff. I remember Snake River Canyon like it was yesterday. So I followed all Evel's career, and I followed Robbie's career because I just always liked seeing what those Knievels were up to next, what they were going to jump, how they were going to jump it. Would they make the jump, hopefully, or would they crash and tumble down or up a ramp and just destroy their bodies? So I was a huge Knievel fan. I was looking forward to talking to Robbie Knievel. So I loaded up my RV. I wanted to talk to the man in person, not on a Skype. So what happens is I get in my damn RV, and I get down to Duck Creek RV Park, right on the outskirts of Las Vegas. If you guys, anybody, if you listen to my voice, if you do any RVing and you're passing through Vegas, try the Duck Creek RV Park. They treated me like absolute gold there. It was a wonderful facility, and I had a great time. Only problem was the internet was a little bit slow. So anyway, back to the story. When I rolled into Vegas, it was hotter than hell. Probably it was 108 degrees. Now, Robbie had already told me, he goes, Steve, it's hot out here. Is your AC unit good? And I said, yeah, it's good. And what I did was I ran my generator all the way from Pomona to Las Vegas with my back air conditioner running. And as soon as I got there, I plugged in my electricity, hooked up my water, kept my AC going, and tried to keep that thing cool. And I tell you what, it was hot. When you're sitting on pavement and it's 108 degrees, it's a dry heat. I don't give a damn what kind of heat you call it. That's hot. So anyway, I had a window of opportunity to interview Robbie between about 4 and 9. And that's when I was set, to have a conversation with the man and talk to him face to face and about all the things that he'd lived through in his life. And I'll be danged if he didn't get a business call and he had to go take care of some business while I was trying to record. So he had to go take care of business. And then by the time he got back, hell, it was late. So we grabbed a hamburger together, and I had a couple of margaritas, and we figured we'd try to get the podcast done the next day. Well, the next day, I got up and started talking to Johnny Mantell for my Tuesday show and got that sent in, got all my reads and everything sent in, and I'll be danged if I didn't get a call from my wife. And once again, believe it or not, Shona, our black lab, has got all kinds of discombobulation. Her nose is bleeding like a faucet. So my wife, who can handle any situation life throws at her, she's a little perturbed at all this stuff, and I need to get home and help out with that dog. So I told Robbie, I said, man, I'm going to have to put this thing in the wind, and we'll just have to talk on the Skype. It was just, we missed each other on that business meeting, and I got to go. And so I left. And I tell you what, I put that RV in the wind, and I was driving. I think it chips out at about 86 miles an hour. And I hauled ass. And I tell you what, there's some idiotic drivers out there between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, California. And there's some idiotic drivers out there between wherever you're going. So whenever you are driving somewhere, put your seatbelt on, keep your head on a swivel, and by God, for God's sake, please use your turn signals, your directionals, your indicators, whatever you want to call them. Hey, get that chopper out of here. I'm trying to record a podcast. I'll tell you what, it ain't about the awards anymore. I'm pissed off about the helicopters. I don't know what I got to do to talk to the mayor of Los Angeles to see what I got to do about getting a no-fly zone over my damn house here. Whether it's the cops, it's the traffic helicopters, or whatever, I got to be able to take care of business without these helicopters messing up my flow. It's a good thing I had my coffee. It's a good thing I had my alpha brain to keep me laser focused, regain my composure, as Gordon Soley would say. But anyway, I missed recording a conversation with Robbie for the podcast. We told some stories. I ate a hamburger, had a couple margaritas, and then it just got late, and I had to haul ass because I had to get back here and help out with the situation with my dogs. The conversation you're going to hear today on this podcast was recorded this morning. After I saw and met Robbie in person, we did connect over Skype. I regret the fact that we couldn't record in person, but sometimes things in life pop up, and that's what happened on this trip. But nonetheless, I look forward to seeing Robbie get back on his motorcycle. He's got a couple of jumps he's looking to make in a couple of months. He's going to give me a heads up, and when he's going to try to make those jumps, I think one of them might be in Dallas, Texas. So anyway, Robbie, it was good talking to you, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this conversation. Evel jumped at Caesar's Palace in '67, the horrific crash. What year did you jump it?
I jumped Caesar's in '89. It took me a lot of years to talk him into doing it. Gary Wells tried it, was the only guy to try it after my dad, and he ran around and mouthed off how easy and what a lousy rider my dad was, and then he missed his whole landing ramp, splattered off the wall, and almost died. And then they weren't ever going to let anybody jump it again, and Dick Clark called me and my dad and said, "What's Robbie up to? Why don't you guys come to L.A. and meet with me, and we'll talk about what he wants to do." And my dad said, we sat down, my dad said, "Robbie wants to jump the Snake River." I said, "Yeah, but first I want to jump Caesar's." And my dad looked at Dick and says, "Oh, anybody can jump Caesar's." and Gary, my dad, crashed, almost killed himself, and Wells almost killed himself. And Dick Clark says, "Well, I know Henry Gluck, the president, and I'll set up a meeting tomorrow if you want, Evel." He says, "All right."
Hey, let me ask you a question, Robbie, because I've heard a few people discount your father's riding ability. Now, I grew up with Evel, in the prime of his career. I was born in '64. '74 was his biggest year. Obviously, Caesar's Palace, all that stuff happened earlier. But I was a huge Evel Knievel fan. He was a hero for me. And then when he stopped, I followed your career, and you became that guy who would defy death and do all the legendary stuff on the back of a motorcycle. But some people discounted your father's riding ability, and I think they're crazy because I don't know. It's like I love UFC and MMA, but I don't know how to technically do it. When I look at your father, the XR 750, what he jumped on, that was not a jump bike. That bike, Eddie Kidd, your nemesis, said, that bike has 3 inches of travel. It was not built for jumping, but that's what the man jumped on. I thought your father was an amazing rider, and people have said that you maybe had more talent than your father. It was the Caesar's Palace crash that really launched your father's career. How would you assess your father's talent compared to yours as you looked over the years at you duplicating some of his jumps and surpassing many of his jumps?
Well, let me try and put this in a nutshell. My dad was an excellent rider. He was an excellent athlete. He was a semi-pro hockey player. He was a semi-pro ski jumper. He did a lot of sports when he was young. And when he grew up in the mining mountains, the Rocky Mountains in Montana. And he climbed hills every day. And, he rode all over the place. And on the bikes back then, I think he was riding Hondas, Yamahas, Honda 500 Scramblers. We used to travel the West Coast, and he raced flat track, half miles. We lived in Orange County when I was 4 years old. My brother was in kindergarten. I remember my first memory. I remember asking my mom, my first memory, sitting there in the dark at Ascot Speedway, "Which one's Dad?" She said, "He's in the black in last." But he would travel the country, and he was racing with the pros. And I grew up with him riding trails and stuff, and my dad was a great rider. But the thing was, over the years when he got into his career after Caesar's, he shoved his hip into his pelvis. One leg was shorter than the other forever. He had a hip replacement in the late 90s. And, that took away. He had staph infection all them years. And he was always injured. I don't remember growing up with my dad when he wasn't hardly walking on a cane or crutches. It's like, geez, my dad's always injured. And, that put a dampener on his riding, for sure. And, you know, when I grew up, I rode every day right out of the backyard into the Rockies, over the mountains, 3-hour, 4-hour loops by myself. And I climbed all the same hills he did in the mines, the big Berkeley pit. There was just tons of hill climbs. But my dad always said that I was a better rider than him. But I rode every day. I put my whole life into it. And I started way younger. And of course, I had better bikes. And when you measure my dad's shocks, they were 8-inch shocks. But the motor, the V-twin motors and stuff, they were so heavy. His bike, my bike's 125 pounds. My dad's were, or 225 pounds. My dad's were 295 pounds. So that's quite a difference. But his jumps were 100 feet on an average. Ceasar's was the longest gap distance my dad had ever tried at 120 feet. When I jumped it, it was 30 feet further. But when you go out and start jumping 90 feet and stretching the ramps 10 more feet, a big difference. But, no, I had a better bike. I had a tighter runway. I didn't think I was going to make it across. And, you know, there's no way to go around Ceasar. So he gave it one shot. His first big jump on ABC was at Ascot Speedway, where he used to flat track race. And then when he jumped Ceasar's, Linda Evans and John Derrick filmed that. Linda shot the landing and John shot the side. But he came up a foot short at the beginning of the safety deck, and it just ripped the handlebars right out of his hands.
I've watched that.
And I barely made it to my rear wheel hit my safety deck and my front wheel hit the landing ramp. And I just had the pillars to deal with. So, you know, my dad was a great rider. And when he jumped 13 buses, you know, that's like 101 feet. When he jumped 14 buses, you know, that's one more bus.
Yeah, but let's go back to Caesar's Palace.
But on the bikes he did.
Let's go back to Caesar's Palace when you jumped it, because your father was the guy that had to talk you into a safety deck. He says, Robbie, if you're going to come up short, that safety deck is going to save your life. And wait. He never did talk me into a safety deck. I used safety decks ever since I started jumping. And I don't know why my dad said that. I have no idea. Some of the things he said. I know some of the things he said on television. I think maybe he was still on some morphine or something. I have no idea. Okay, then
from his surgeries.
Then let me ask.
But some things he said, I don't know why he said them, but I always used a safety deck, and I always argued that with him. Why did you say that? I always used a safety deck, and he didn't have nothing to say.
Well, then let me ask you, what was your relationship like with your dad? Because obviously as a kid you idolized him. He was your hero, and you were born into the business. That's what you wanted to do. But then as you got introduced, what was it, the show in Toronto when he introduced you and Kelly, and he basically went on tour with him from then on. But was there a competitive dynamic, or was he always coaching you up? What was the story with you two?
You know, not with me. The first show we did was in Madison Square Garden with him. I was 8. And then I was wheeling across the football fields when I was 11, live on ABC with him. And my brother was a year and a half older than me, and he just quit doing shows because he'd go riding with me, and he says, wow, I'm going to play golf. My brother has the eye of the tiger, and I don't want nothing to do with this. And so I kept going with my dad. And we got back together. I left home at 16. I got in some trouble robbing a music store, so I had to move back home on probation. And, you know, I wanted to get away from my dad. He was always in pain, and he did a lot of hollering and screaming. And when he went to jail for breaking the guy's arms with the ball bat in 78, I was out. I was 16 years old. And then I had to move back. Then we got together, and he took me to show me the ropes. He took me to the small stock car tracks. And I did jumps that he did years ago over a few more trucks or vans. And he would just do wheelies and do a speech and stuff. And he took me all down the West Coast, and he says, we're going to go to Australia. I got a tour over there. We shipped 2 of the semis over there, 2 of the Cadillac pickups. And me and him and an entourage went over there for about a month and did shows with stunt people from all over the world. Then we went to Puerto Rico and did 9 shows. 5 across the island in Salinas. Then we came back to Roberto Clemente Stadium and did 4 more. And then me and my dad came back to Florida, the Pontiac Silverdome, and did some shows together. And then I moved out for good and moved to Arizona when I was 19.
But why?
So I kept that name going forever. And my dad always said I was a better rider. We had a turbulent relationship, but it was no different, I don't think, than many fathers and their sons. You know, we argued. We had our arguments, and I never won the arguments. And my dad, my attorney that I've known since 9, did all my dad's toy deals, did all my contracts through the years. And he says, Robbie, your dad loves you. He knows you're very talented. He's still Evel Knievel, and he just doesn't want to pass the baton. So that's another reason I moved out. And what I do, I struggled up and down all the time. And then I walked into Fox by myself one day, and they wanted to do a show, Stunts Go Bad. So I was just an extra on that stunt show, and then I talked him into doing a live show because my dad's shows were on ABC. They were tape delayed, but Fox says, okay, we'll do a 2-hour stunt special. So they did an hour and a half of other stunts, and then they did my last half hour when I jumped to 30 limos at the Tropicana. And they said, your rating was huge. We want to do your next show 1 hour, just you live. So I've had 8 live-hour specials now, 5 on Fox, 2 pay-per-views, and a live show where I jumped on the USS Intrepid for the troops live on TNT. And I just keep going and keep going. Everybody said after Caesar's, what's he going to do next? And I came up with all kinds of ideas, the part of the Grand Canyon, the volcano, the limos, the building-to-building jump, you know, the head-on steam engine train jump. I mean, it's all going to be on my documentary that comes out September. We filmed for a year. It's all done, but they're editing right now. It's going to be out in September of 2017, excuse me. I'll do a junket tour in January. The talk shows promote that and my book, and it's a 75-minute movie, they call it, because it's over an hour. And it will show everything from me being on the front of my dad's bike when I was 2 years old and starting riding at 4 years old, the trailer house we lived in until I was 12, and then everything turned from trailer trash, basically, to yachts, Learjets, and Ferraris. So it was a shock when I was a teenager. And there's not a kid in this world, not even my brother traveled with me and my dad to Australia and all the places we went, that saw the life that I saw. And when I think about it, there's just nobody that lived that life. And I'm excited about the documentary because it's life and redemption. I said, I don't want a bunch of people feeling sorry for me because I'm Evel Knievel's son. But it's going to show that I made it on my own. Yes, I have the name, but I was my dad's biggest fan, and I wanted to keep that name going forever. And now I'm 54, and last October I jumped 56 feet further than I did at Caesar's and almost cleared my landing ramp and broke my spine, my vertebrae, and they smashed them into a cage. And I'm just waiting for that to heal up because I'm ready to go again this summer.
I want to ask you about the crashes and the landings and the dynamics of flying through the air, but first, you touched upon that just then. Pretty much when you guys started out, it was meager beginnings. I don't want to say rags to riches, but it was rags to riches and then back to reality. Yes. Because, man, after the thing with Shelley Saltman, after your dad broke his arm with the book, you know, Shelley wrote the book, and your Evel didn't like a thing in that book, and you took a baseball bat to the man, and then I guess broke probation or parole, and then they put him back in jail. But, you know, back in the day when he started jumping and had all that success, when all the toys came out, because I had the stunt cycle, and you guys, Evel was making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and he was spending it just as fast as he could make it. So what was it like for you as a kid to grow up from meager beginnings, all of a sudden to be the lifestyle of the rich and famous, and your dad is an absolute rock star?
Well, I was only 12 when I moved. We built a house when we left the trailer on 8 acres on the golf course, and all of a sudden we had these beautiful thoroughbred horses and Tennessee Walkers. And I was cleaning the horse stalls with my mom. We had the hunting dogs because my great-grandfather raised my dad and took him hunting all the time. And he took time out in his prime time when we were young kids to take us hunting, fishing. I mean, we went down a dirt road in his convertible $1.5 million Ferrari. Back then it was probably a $60,000 Ferrari. But now the original Daytona Spiders, he had 5 of them, 5 Ferraris. He had Lamborghinis. He had 2 Learjets. And the press had asked him, why did you buy 2 Learjets? Well, he always lettered everything in gold leaf. And he says, I just want to fly next to the other one and see my name on the side. But, of course, he'd fly his friends to Florida. We had a house there all of a sudden, the ranch in Montana on the country club on a hill. And then he had a Fed ship, 118-foot. He had a custom-built 85-foot Broward that he designed, a 45-foot Chris Craft. And these are all sitting in front of the house on the Intercoastal. And Jackie Gleason used to come by. And I'll never forget, we got in the boat. He says, I'm driving, Evel. They were good buddies. He'd come over on his Teakwood yacht, and the cops pulled us over. And Jackie says, how many times have I told you guys, don't ever pull me and my friends over when we're having fun? And he nailed the throttle, and he just yelled at the cops, and away we go. I mean, this stuff was happening all the time. Every day there was something exciting going on. And I could never get away from that life, and I kept living it forever.
But you're obviously an adrenaline junkie, but was your dad teaching you, hey, hard work, you got to do your chores, or it was all the show business all the time, and it was on to the next show and working shows?
He had me and my brother out in the yard all the time on the 8 acres. I was either painting white fences or cleaning the horse stalls or taking care of the dogs with my mother. But, yeah, there was time to run around the golf course and get in trouble with my friends. And, there was just I did everything a young kid would do. And, and I got in a lot of trouble. And I wanted to leave home because I wanted to be free and be on my own. I would talk him into letting me bring all my homework and fly to Florida and help sand on the yacht whenever they were painting it or something. I was just always traveling. So I traveled my whole life. And to live that kind of a life with that kind of a man, he was a great father. I remember him, wanting to lay in bed with us and say prayers before we, went down to our rooms and went to sleep. I remember going to the Snake River Canyon like it was yesterday when I was 12. I mean, he was the biggest, fastest overnight success out of anybody in a 10-year period. From like Ceasar's, he started jumping in the 60s, but Ceasar's at 67, and his last big jump over the 14 buses was in Kings Island in 1975. And I've been in this business like 46 years now.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Grow grass fast with Scott's Turf Builder Rapid Grass. It's a revolutionary mix of seed and fertilizer that grows full green grass in just weeks. It helps you solve your lawn's large problem areas and establishes new grass in no time. Seed and feed your lawn back to the top of its game fast, so you can speed your way to enjoying it. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Rapid Grass today. It's guaranteed or your money back. Feed your lawn. Feed it.
So when you first bought your first bike, what did you grow up riding? Was there a preferred brand of motorcycle that you liked? He's jumping Harley, but you're riding the newer technology stuff that's lighter and more nimble?
Well, when I was real young, I started on a Honda 50, of course, when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I jumped a Hodaka 100 and a Baja 100 Harley off his ramps for the first time when I was 9. I only jumped like one car. And then I started doing the wheelies, and I got on CR 125s, and I raced flat track on a CR 125 for a while. Then I went into motocross first. My first race was at the Snake River Canyon when I was 10. And then I grew up, got onto Can-Ams. Harley sponsored me on 250s, SXs, which were bikes with lights, and they were junk. And that's what I jumped when I was 13, 14. Went to Australia, rode their motocross bike, and their motocross bike didn't last long. But Harley, I always wanted to sponsor me, but they never would. My dad did the baseball bat deal, broke the guy's arms. Everybody says, there's some guy said he beat the hell out of him. He didn't. He just broke his arms. He had somebody hold his arms because he was in the hospital with 2 casts on his arms. And the reason he broke his arms, he said, now write a book, Abby. He was kind of sticking up for the celebrities amongst us, so to speak, and the press. He said they would flagrantly violate, people's privacy and certain things. But, I in the book, I never read the whole thing, to tell you the truth. I was so young when it came out. It was called On Tour with Evel Knievel, but it was a lot of truth. I mean, my dad was huge. He was like an Elvis on a motorcycle traveling around. And every woman in the country saw something in Evel Knievel that attracted it to him.
So
attracted them to him.
How did that set with you? Because, you know, I know you have a great relationship with your mother, and Evel called her the most beautiful woman in the world. And yet, you know, when he was on tour, he had a few vices. Maybe Wild Turkey 101 was one of those vices, but so was women. And you had a hard time with that because, you know, obviously, you know, you're a young man, but you know that he's cheating on your mother. How did that set with you? And did you ever say, hey, Dad, this is wrong? Because that's Evel Knievel you would be talking to.
You know what? I never did say anything to him, but it killed me. My mom is a perfect angel, and everybody that knew her, from Frank Gifford to any sportscasters, Howard Cosell, they loved my mother. And I was the only one traveling with them, so my brother didn't even see this stuff. He found out later on, but when I was 16, that's when it first struck me, and I was just like, wow, Dad, this is terrible. Like any kid would be if he had a great mother and father. So it was hard for me to comprehend. And I went through life and the travels overseas and all over, and that's what I saw. And that was my dad, and it was what it was, and I was the son. So what was I going to do, beat him up? I don't think so.
But you followed in his footsteps, you know, jumping motorcycles. It was your passion. It was your calling. You loved the adrenaline of it and the challenge of it. And so you're much like your father. When you would achieve your greatest fame, your notoriety, all of a sudden you have this huge following. You're married. You have kids. You must have followed in your father's same footsteps with regards to the women, the vices, etc.
No, I didn't. I'll tell you why. Because my mother was such an angel, and I had half of her in me. I had half my mom and half my dad. There's a little evil in all of us, I always say, but mostly me. I wasn't a dog. I had a lot of friends and a lot of people around me that were dogs, and that's just how guys are, people are. And women are the same way these days. I mean, it's just, things were way different when I grew up, and I just wasn't that way. And I continue to be the same, you know. I'm good to my girl and the girls I've been with. Way back in the day, I might have cheated on one or two, but that's life.
So, not like Evel. I mean, his shenanigans were so
No,
prolific.
he had. I don't know how many women he had. He might have had as many as Gene Simmons, for all I know.
Okay, but let's talk
I
about.
have no idea.
Let's talk about a few of the other vices. I mean, because I spent my fair share of time on the road, but your guy, been on record as saying you used to love your whiskey. How bad or how hard would the whiskey take its toll on you, and how bad did it possess you, or you just used it, a lot of it, because it seems to be, I don't know, that was your vice?
Well, I drank a lot. It went with my job. I mean, anybody with high adrenaline. You know, I never considered myself an adrenaline junkie. I started so young, it just came natural. Of course there was adrenaline. I mean, after a jump, it took me 2 days to come down because your adrenaline, you just risked your life. You could be dead in a second. And I have lucked out so many times and haven't got killed from jumping, where I've had so many close calls. But yeah, the drinking, it was there. In the 80s, all my friends were partying. Everybody I knew was partying. And so, you know, I had my days with it, and I grew up. I saw my dad get a liver transplant. My grandpa quit drinking. My dad's dead 15 years before he died. My dad quit drinking almost 15 years before he died. My uncle, my dad's brother, quit drinking before he died. So everybody's different. And yes, I had a problem with drinking. And I got in an accident. Nobody got killed, luckily, about a year and a half ago. And I just woke up. My pancreas gave me problems for 16 years. I had acute pancreatitis. I had pancreatitis and acute pancreas problems. So I was in the emergency room once a year for pain. And after the accident, I just said, I'm done. And I quit for a year and stayed completely sober for 11 months. My buddy Grizzly Adams died. I had a couple drinks. Now I have a drink here and there, but I do not let it get to me. It's almost like my body's rejecting it because I took it out of my body and brain for so long, you get to an age, I did anyway, that said, I just don't care about this stuff anymore. It's not what I need. But I was so used to drinking every day for years and years. It just went with my life. And I was a fun drinker, but I didn't get drunk and go cause problems or start fights. You know, I did when I was broke, when I moved out when I was young, get drunk and go rob the music store 2 years in a row, you know, and spend some time for that. And then I moved away from home, and I says, I got a business now. I got a manager. I got to try and make it. For years and years, I was up and down. And then I got low blood sugar in the 90s. I couldn't drink at all. And then, you know, I just, you get to a certain age and things happen, and you see what happened to a lot of people, and you go through meetings, you go through outpatient treatment, you learn so much, and it finally hits you. That alcohol, if it gets a stronghold on you, it's time to get away from it. That's anything. My dad never did drugs. He hated drugs. The only drugs he was on was pain medication in the hospitals. But, you know, he caught me smoking pot when I was a kid, you know, 16, 17 years old. He was going to break my legs, so I stole the truck and tried to run away. All these stories are in my documentary, so it'll be good.
Well, tell me about your relationship with pain, because I've experienced my fair share in the business of professional wrestling. Y'all, your father, yourself, took it to a whole new level, because when I go back and I've seen the Caesar's Palace crash by your father, and that was probably the crash that really launched his career into the stratosphere, and then the Wembley crash in front of anywhere between 70 and 90,000 people, which was horrific. And that's when, after that crash, he said, hey, I'm never going to jump again. He would, but nonetheless, both of those crashes captured in slow motion, and I've watched them 100 times, and I've seen you have the same type crashes. And then the Grand Canyon jump, you made the jump, but due to whatever happened after you hit the bottom of the ramp, that berm flipped you off the bike. So I guess what I'm asking you is, what is your relationship with pain? Because you've experienced it at the extreme highest levels. Is it something you just accept and you just live with, high tolerance to pain, or you're immune to?
You know, I can't answer that. I hate pain, and everybody's different with pain, so I don't know how it affects me, but I hate it. I can't stand it. I don't like a paper cut. And now I have arthritis that kills me. I take glucosamine. It's the only thing that's helped me. From my separated, you know, shoulders, dislocations, to my knee surgeries, to all the torn ligaments in my body. I mean, when you watch me crash, when people compare my bike to my dad's, nobody ever did what my dad did back then. He stood on the seat and was doing stand-up wheelies in the 60s. It was unheard of. I was doing no-handers, jumps in the late 70s. Nobody ever saw and heard of. And a lot of these kids doing tricks today, they weren't even born. And they got an 80-foot jump on an average doing their backflips or whatever and landing on dirt. But when you see my bike come, on an average, my dad was doing, he'd always say he was going 100 miles an hour, but in reality, he was doing 60 to 70 miles an hour on a heavy bike. When you see me hit the pavement at 85 miles an hour, I mean, I'm going way faster, and I'm going almost twice as high because I got a higher ramp. And I mean, I'm splatting down the pavement, and people will see my dad's slow motion, and they'll see my jumps on this documentary. You know, I'm hitting the pavement way faster. Yeah, I'm on a better bike, but I'm going higher and twice as far. My average jumps are close to 200 feet.
You know, explain to me about the jumping process, just, I guess, the physics of it, because when it comes down to designing a ramp, when I watched your father's old jumps, you know, the ramps, he was trying to hit at a high rate of speed, as you just said. And then to me, the ramps had a flat trajectory. And I'm thinking, why don't they build a higher ramp? But with that, I'm assuming comes the trade-off. You're going to fall further. And with the 3 inches of travel, the 8-inch shocks that he had, the landings were absolutely brutal. And he broke his back, I don't know how many times. Same with you. Just take me through the dynamics of how do you set up a ramp gauge the measurements of it, the trajectory, and talk to me about flying further rather than higher, because what's the lesser of two evils? I mean, you don't want to come down too hard, but you got to make it to the other side. How do y'all decide that?
The further you go, if you're thinking in my dad's mind back then, only he was. And the further you go, he says, I'm going to jump 15 cars for a world record at Ascot Speedway in 1966. Maybe it was 65, I don't know. But, he was I think he was on a Norton, or he might have been on a 500 Scrambler. I'm not sure, but he had to build a higher ramp to go further. So he would build these 8-foot wide takeoff ramps that were 6 feet high. And my ramp's 10 foot now, so it gives me more distance. But the beginning of his ramps, I learned from him in the late 70s. I would start building an approach ramp that I'd pull up on the bottom of the ramp. So when I hit it, it would take some of that boom. He would hit the bottom of the ramp. It would slow him down and cross him up. And if you look at most of his jumps, it would slow him down enough where he would hit that little safety deck, and it would spit him off. And there were some jumps he almost cleared the ramp. But, it's just the ramps he used to use. And then by the time he was doing his big jumps, like 13 Mack trucks in Toronto, Canada, I noticed his takeoff ramp had a lot better takeoff at the bottom. But he'd still get crossed up because it wasn't good enough. And mine changes degree, and it's higher. It goes from like 8 degrees, down towards the first part of the bottom where you take your hardest impact, a quarter of the way up the takeoff ramp, and it turns to 15 degrees at the top. So you really can't even see it when you're looking at the ramp. But yeah, for him to drive down the strip at Caesar's Palace and go, I want to be the first gladiator at this hotel. And he walked in there and says, I want to make you guys famous. I want to jump your fountains. I mean, what was he thinking? I don't know what he was thinking. And then all of a sudden he's in a bar and they're telling, why don't you jump the Grand Canyon? Okay, so he heads to the Grand Canyon with a bike with jets and wings on it. And he could never get permission because the north side is, government land, national park. And the south side is all Navajo and Wallapai Indian land. And that's what I had to do. I had to go to the south rim with the Wallapais and jump part of the canyon. So there's no way you're going to make it over the canyon unless you got a rocket. That's why he went to the Snake River, and he bought a piece of property. And the other side was Bureau of Land Management, and it still is. And they will not let anybody go. You're just going to get in trouble and do write you a ticket. But anyway, I've been working on the Snake River Canyon forever. I want to go back to Wembley and jump to Harley just to show people I can jump to Harley. I'd rather have 2 cylinders banging a piston than one, believe me. Because when you're headed for that ramp and your piston sticks, you're done. If you land too short, no guy's ever lived except one guy tore his legs off landing underneath the ramp without cars in it on the grass. But, I want to do the canyon, and I want to do Wembley just to prove to myself and people that, I can jump to Harley further.
Let's talk about the Snake River Canyon jump that your father attempted in the X2 Sky Cycle. The chute deployed on takeoff, but the biggest question I have for you is, how old were you at that time?
I was 12 in 1974, September 8th.
What was running through your mind? Because I know your mother was nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs because this was... And Evel, quite frankly, admitted that he thought he was going to die, but he gave his word that he was going to jump that canyon, and so he did. The chute deployed, but here's my question. What was the state of mind between you and your brothers and sisters and your mother before that jump happened?
Between me and my brothers and sisters, we thought my dad was going to die. He thought he was going to die. I never saw my dad so apprehensive on an interview before he did that anywhere. And I hung around the engineer's garage when they were building the first DX-1 in Southern California, and he was a chief engineer at NASA for years, Bob Truax.
Yeah.
And there's nothing my dad wanted to do but successfully land on the other side. And the first shot went without a chute at 3,000 pounds of thrust, a big ball of steam that sits right behind you that's heated up to a certain temperature. So the only way it could have blown up is if there was a leak in the ball. The engineer explained all this to me later. And I remember it a lot when I was a kid. But he had to put it off for 2 more years because, they just weren't ready. And he was, trying to get enough money. And they fired a second test shot with a dummy in it at 5 in the morning, just when it got light out so no cameras could get it. Because that was the first time they raised the ramp, 100-foot-long steel track ramp that it had to go on, and 0 to 450 in 3.5 seconds, the engineer told me, almost straight up, 57 degrees. And, and it was going to go, it was designed that much thrust, 5,000 pounds of thrust, 5,000 pounds of total impulse. 0 to 450 in 3.5 seconds. He was worried about, blacking out, where he couldn't pull the chute. And the second test shot went off, and the chute blew out the exact same way. And the engineer told me that he wasn't sure what happened. I mean, they weren't sure what happened back then. He says, Evel, we need to fire another test shot. I don't know what happened. Maybe we should take the canister off the top of the parachute. There's electrical wires running everywhere in that thing. And then my dad says, I'm out of time, I'm out of money, take it off automatic pilot. I will pull the chute, because the second test shot went perfectly straight on automatic pilot. And when my dad did it, as soon as it fired, the chute blew out before the thing even went 10 feet.
Correct.
It's just like a shotgun shell. It's just the thrust just blew it out. And the last thing my dad wanted to do was take a chance on landing in the river. The second test shot landed in the river because the wind was hardly blowing. But every day at that canyon, it blows from the BLM right into your face every day. I mean, not every day, but that afternoon it was blowing hard. And if it would have went a half a mile over, it might have caught the edge and stayed on that side. But he blew out. He thought he was going in the river. He had a chute on his chest. He was struggling, trying to get out to pull that chute because it was so heavy. And the guys down there in the boats, they wouldn't have got my dad out before he drowned. And he couldn't get the straps off because of the G-force. It just snagged him and locked him in. They just tightened up, and he could not get it off. So he lucked out and blew into the wall and bounced into the rocks on the one side. Talk about one lucky guy, man.
And I remember watching that live. It was absolutely incredible.
The whole family was crying that he was going down in the river and he was going to drown. So, yeah, we thought he was dead, and then he comes up with a bloody nose because he read it out. He didn't black out. The G-force rushed all the blood to his head, and the engineer told me years later, I go, how many Gs did he take? Because I used to go up in the Learjets and practice G-force when I was a kid, but I'd only take like 2 or 3 Gs, and I was like, yeah, enough of this crap. But the engineer told me it was between 6 and 7 of the toughest Gs you can take, neither negative or positive, in the middle. So I really don't understand that until I get a G suit on and start practicing. I mean, nobody's ever made that canyon. Nobody's ever been back there since. I would rather jump a bike any day of the week than get in that sky cycle.
And he said the same thing in an interview. He goes, hey, man, that canyon's still there, and I haven't seen anybody line up to take it on. The question on the back end of the Snake River Canyon jump, that jump, the failure of that jump, because it wasn't his fault, it was a mechanical failure, and he'd rather go down in flames or have a crash and not let the people down. But that setback, I mean, that really devastated Evel. It took a toll on him.
Oh, totally. He never wanted to go back there. You know why? Because it was the craziest thing he ever did. It was just nuts. With the parachutes technology today, people say, there's never been another sky cycle built. And you still got to have the thrust, and I would do it the same way with the steam. I would just hope that we had a chute system that we could figure out. And I'll guarantee you, if my crew chief's still alive, and you're still alive, and my stunt coordinator, Spanky, my buddy's still alive, a few guys that I can trust, I'm going to have you guys standing there with remote controls, and if I black out, you guys count to 1, and then pull that chute just like an ejection seat on a friggin' jet. All right?
I'm there. What was his conversation with Bob Truax? Because he really felt that Truax was...
Him and Bob, no, they got along. My dad always said Bob Truex had a little bit of an ego with his building, but the guy was an engineer. He designed a sky cycle for Evel Knievel. My dad had an ego, for Christ's sake. Everybody had an ego back then. 60s, 70s, 80s. I remember going to Hollywood and wanting to do stunts, and man, egos were just flying for years. And, he always said Truex had a little bit of an ego, but I always found Bob Truex to be the nicest guy in the world to me. So, it was a lot of building. My dad was in that garage for years, and then the test shots at the side of the canyon for years. It was crazy to just I couldn't even fathom what my dad was doing, let alone on a bike and then getting in a rocket. I thought he was nuts. I loved my dad. I didn't want to see him die. I was crying like crazy when I saw that chute come out. I thought he was going in the river. And we just gotten in an accident 2 years before. We took my mother's father duck hunting. We just bought a 6-man raft. And we're floating down the Madison River, and it's 12 feet deep at the time. And we come around the corner, and there's a fork in the river, and we hit a log, and the boat tipped over. I was in the middle of the boat. My dad was in the middle, and my brother was in front. I was in front of my grandpa in the back. And my grandpa shoved me as hard as he could. My dad grabbed my brother and threw him into the bushes on this island. My grandfather, I felt him shove me as hard as he could, and I grabbed the branches. Well, my grandfather had waders on. My dad had chest waders on to go get the ducks after we shot them. But the river was so deep, my grandpa went down underneath. He's hanging onto the bushes for, I don't know, at least 10, 15, 20 seconds, and we see him pop up, and he grabs this log, and his coat was off, so he must have took it off in the bushes, and my dad's yelling, hang on. He started to go out on the log, and my grandpa had to let go because his boots were full of water. And my mom, it's her birthday on a Sunday, and she's waiting down at the bridge. Anyway, they found him. It still cracks me up. It just traumatized me for the rest of my life. And, just the whole drowning thing. The canyon came up, and it was almost like, oh, dad's going to drown like Grandpa and because of this accident. And it was just a weird, weird deal for the whole family.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Take me through the process of the mental prep or physical prep before a big jump. What are you thinking at the top of the ramp to gain speed, coming down the ramp or zipping through the Caesar's Palace the way you did? What are you thinking if you're taking a couple of run-ups and you were a field guy and you would go when it felt right? Not everything was, wasn't a scientific thing. Is whenever you felt right, that's when you would go. But take me through the process. Are you visualizing success? Are you seeing yourself fly through the air? How do you prep for what you're about to do? Because case in point, your Grand Canyon jump, when you were at the top of the ramp, you couldn't see across the other side to where you were landing. So the ramp is there, but you're jumping into the unknown. You're super experienced. I got to ask you, WTF are you thinking at that moment?
They're all different. You can't see the landing ramp because it's a slope. And it's there on every jump. But that's why my dad started building safety decks so he could see the front of the landing ramp. And if he landed a little short, he had something to hit. He created the safety deck. He created what he did. But sometimes I get butterflies, I say, and sometimes I get cockroaches. Different jumps, different feelings. The building jump was only about 20-car distance, but it was the scariest offset jump I'd ever done, being up there 13 stories. Caesar's, no run-bys. Nobody ever made it. And I'm making run-bys and shutting down, and I didn't think I had the speed. And I made 5 runs where I usually only make 3. And people think you're just psyching the crowd up. No, you're making speed runs. My dad, when he started, he used to have us stand there at the side, watch him go by and pull up to us and go, think I'm going fast enough? I think you got it, Dad. I don't know. You're the one pulling the trigger. And, I do the same thing. No speedometer, no tachometer. And after years, I started having a guy stand by my ramp and just radar me. So I would get within 30 feet on an 80-foot-long landing ramp. The Grand Canyon ramp was 100 feet long because it was way higher. And I would sit and look at that every day, and all I saw was this huge open canyon get wider and wider every time I looked between the ramps over that hole.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a long ways down, and so it looked like a longer jump. And I couldn't make run-bys there because I promised the Native Americans I would build scaffolding all over all their cactus. And that lump that came out, so everybody knows, was a rock, and it was part of the canyon edge. And so I didn't want to dig that up. And I just thought, well, I got plenty of room. And then they built, the producers, there was 18 cameras, I think, on my jump, but they built a camera stand way down at the end and put hay bales in front of it. And until I came out of the motorhome that day, up by the ramp, because it got postponed the first year, I knew how far the jump was. And I all of a sudden I see this camera stand and hay bales. I go, I'll deal with that later. And I just went as fast as I could, and I went way too far. And my rear wheel hit that rock, little ledge there, and it just kicked me up, and I said, I ain't going to stop. So I grabbed the front brake and bailed off. And just flip-flopped, stretched everything in my body, broke my ankles, tore my ligaments, and had a concussion and broke a couple ribs.
Man, it was a hell of a tumble in that hay bale, and I was thinking, man, why didn't they take that berm down? Because if you could have just rode it out, put the hay bales maybe another 100 yards further, you could have just eased into the hay bales, but you got launched off the bike. It was a horrific spill, but you made the jump. And to your point, you overshot it, but that's dang sure one that you don't want to undershoot or you're going in the canyon.
Yeah, well, even if you undershoot any of your jumps and hit the front of the ramp, well, I've hit the front of the ramp and bounced over, where half on, half off. Like in Hawaii, I hit the front of the ramp and just bounced over, destroyed the ramp, had a piece of scaffold pipe go right through my swing arm, which is a thick aluminum swing arm, and missed my body and sprained my back, and went out there the next night and did it no hands. But, it's just any jump you land that short. If I would have landed 3 feet shorter, I'd be dead. Because you're hitting a wall, basically, your safety deck, or a car, and you're going to snap your neck in half, just like everybody has. I mean, a big handful of guys have landed short, and they're all dead.
I was listening to your dad break down just the basics of a jump, and I'd like to chime in and give me your 2 cents. He says on your starting position, you want to be on the balls of your feet. You want to make sure you're straight on the ramp, because if you're crossways, you're going to miss your landing. You want to be in the power curve on takeoff, and then you can rev the bike in air to adjust position or hit the brakes. Tell me about the dynamics of flying through the air. Would you concur with that? And what does hitting the brakes and revving the motorcycle while you're in the air, how does that change the pitch or angle of the motorcycle?
I think my dad never did use a brake on any of his jumps. He was either nose diving or crossed up, or he was, getting back too high. But the back brake stops your rear wheel because it's spinning so fast, or slows it down. You don't want to stop it because then you have twice as much weight coming down because you kill the motor. But, I just tap it when I did long jumps. My jump contest, I nailed it twice. Boom, boom, and I didn't kill the motor. But it speared me right down. It brings your bike back because that rear wheel is driving and spinning so fast, it's bringing the front end up because it's driving down, you know what I mean? So you hit the back brake to stop that rear wheel, and it notches you forward. So I've used that on a lot of jumps. The last jump I did, I hit it so hard because I was getting so straight up and down because I launched so high because I didn't have a good takeoff, and I missed my fourth gear a little bit, and I hit fifth, and I just said, nail it, keep it on, and it just launched me. And I jumped 56 feet further than I did at Caesar's Palace and almost cleared the ramp and ended up with a major back surgery where they crushed my vertebrae, the bones, removed a couple what do they call them, discs, herniated discs, and they smashed those bones into a cage that goes from T number 9 to lumbar number 1. And, man, this is the most crappy thing I've ever gone in as far as injuries besides knee surgeries. I had the major knee injuries.
Yeah, but I want to touch upon that back injury because, as Evel said, and you just said, The landing, to me, seems to be the toughest part just because of the sheer impact. On your Caesar's Palace jump, the announcer made a point of the fact that those were knobby tires. Those weren't built for the kind of asphalt you're going to be running on, or the cement on the backside of the jump. But you said to him that those knobbies help cushion the bike's impact on the ground more so than a street tire. So your thoughts on that, and then tell me, describe to my listeners what it feels to come down from 45 feet and land on a motorcycle, because from your father's films, from your films, some of those impacts are so dynamic. You were both launched so high, it just looks like it feels like pure hell.
Well, you know, Dave Dial, or not Dave Dials, the announcer, he used to race. God, what was his name? He used to be around racing his whole life and raced also. But he was talking about the knobby tires, and all the times I grew up, the longer jumps, this and that, people would say, what are you doing with knobby tires? Well, who's the professional here, guys? You know, my dad, it's like, if it's too slick to jump with a knobby, it's too slick to jump. So I got an extra inch almost out of them knobbies when I hit, so it cushions my suspension a little more. And I'm coming down. My dad was at probably 15 feet at his wheels in the air. I'm more like 25 feet. And when you go out and, just think about getting on a motorcycle almost on top of a telephone pole and just dropping straight down, you're going to take a hard hit.
Yeah.
But when you're going 85 miles an hour like my last jump, and you come down from 25 feet at your wheels, where your head's about 30 feet in the air, it's like, it's a hard hit. And my dad broke his back 3 or 4 times. He never had a back surgery. He always broke it outwards instead of into his spinal cord, is what my mother told me. And he lucked out that way. But I totally munched, and I was 5'10" and a half. Now I'm like 5'8". And the doctor said he put an inch back on me, put a tool in there, and he cranked this cage, or cranked my spine, my actual spine up, where it was bent. I sent you a picture of the x-ray. I mean, my back is bent.
Dude, it's wicked. And here's the thing. People ask me all the time from 15 years of pro wrestling, hey, man, how you feeling? Hey, I feel pretty good. Let me ask you that same question. After all the years of jumps, all the successes, all the hard landings, and then on top of that, the crashes, and then on top of that, back in the day when the whiskey was running hot, how do you feel? How's your body on a 1 to 10? Say a 1 feels like crap and a 10 feels like $1 million. Where are you on that scale?
I'm just hoping my back's going to heal up, the core, everything's going to be strong enough to jump again, because I don't want to quit. Everybody wants me to quit. They can't believe I'm still jumping as far as I'm jumping at my age, but I'm still going the distance. I'm still jumping further in Caesar's Palace at my age every time. But the doctors told me, I said, I've cleared ramps before. How come my back broke? And they says, well, when was the last time you cleared a ramp? I said, I don't know, 40 years old. They says, well, every year after 40, everybody's back starts getting weaker every year. And so as strong as my back heals, it's still going to be weak at the age I'm at.
Your father, right there getting towards the end of his career, he felt that people had high expectations for himself. It was almost like he was a comic book superhero and he could never live up because people wanted him to jump further and further. But he also said that your mental attitude deteriorates as you get older because of the pain and the healing process when you're flat on your back for months at a time. When did you start seeing, the end as far as your dad being an active jumper? And how hard on him was that? He could live up to expectations, but also he was on the backside of the prime of his athletic career.
Well, yeah, he was way on the backside on the athletic part. I get on my bike today and my crew chief looks at me and says, holy cow. Well, I haven't been on my bike since October, so I'm just waiting for my back to heal up. But mentally, I feel way stronger in my head. And a lot of what I do is mind over matter. Of course, probably the same with you. And the physical definitely going away. And my dad was smart enough to quit his last jump in 75, he was probably 36 years old, somewhere in there, and he did a couple small jumps over like 8 vans with me. We did crisscross jumps down in Florida. And then he said, I'm done. I just don't have the guts to pull the trigger anymore. And I think he was worried about getting paralyzed because he's seen it happen to so many guys trying to emulate him. So I think he was maybe just smart and said, I just want to play golf the rest of my life, and I can't do that in a wheelchair. And I'm saying the same thing, and I'm believing in my God, keeping my faith. And I think God's got a meaning for us all. I don't want to quit this, and I think it's my meaning.
Your dad said in an interview that you'll be the luckiest kid in the world if you don't end up in a wheelchair. What are your thoughts on what he said?
He's God now. Quit repeating him.
but he's the guy that can...
I don't want to, on interviews, you go, I don't want to be the father standing there at the end of Caesar's palace and pick up a bloodied, crumpled, paralyzed son or dead son. I'm like, geez, Dad. Cool it. Anyway, yeah, that's the risk you take in what we do. And I do what my dad did, like a lot of kids want to do what their fathers do. Anyway,
you got into the motorcycle daredevil business, the sport, because you were born into it, and your father was your hero, and you followed in his footsteps, and big shoes to fill, and you had your own run. At the end of the day, and I know you want to have a few more jumps left in you, but you got it because you're born in it. Now, when you look back, you had the money and the fame. You had your dad's approval. You're in the shoes that you're in right now. You've got another jump that you want to do in a couple of months. The documentary's coming out. Do you feel like you've gotten everything you could out of your body? Has it been the run you expected? Maybe is the backside, was it all worth it? Because we didn't sign up for a ballet class. You signed up for the life that you signed up for, and it was a hard living.
Yeah, it's not what I thought, and nobody knows that until they get older. I should have been dead a zillion times, whether it was jumping for money or just out there drinking and riding, just stupid stuff. And it's embarrassing now. It's stupid. And I'm going to be what I've learned my whole life. I'm going to take all that professional learning and put it together on every jump I do because I just don't want to quit yet. And I want to keep that name the most famous on two wheels. And so far, I have done that, and there's a lot of jumps I still want to do. I'm running out of ideas, but the Harley jump is one of them, and I go to these Native American casinos mostly, and I'm picking and choosing the jumps I want to do now. But I just hope my back heals up. If I jump tomorrow, it feels like it'd break right now.
What is it now for the money, for the rush, or just because you love flying through the air?
It's definitely got something to do with money. I've made hundreds of thousands where my dad made millions. And I got a website, Captain Knievel with a K. If anybody wants to book me, that's where I'm at. But, I just love people. I loved our fans. My dad was always stopped and signed an autograph. He never turned anybody down. And I stand up and take pictures with them and sign their autographs because they all got a camera with them these days. But, it's just the people that walk up to me with a Robbie doll still in the box from when I was 13 and ask me to sign that. That's hilarious. And then my dad's toys outsold G.I. Joe. I was the kid riding on the back on his toy commercials. But, I never made a bunch of money off that. My dad made millions because his toys were so great.
He said he came along, he was the right guy at the right time with the right persona, dare I say gimmick, as we would use in the wrestling business. The white, the red, and the blue. It was America. So in hindsight, though, after the Shelley Saltman incident, when he beat him with the baseball bat, and then Ideal pulled the toy line, and then again, with respect to money, that really put a damper on your earning power because of all the deals that were yanked due to those actions. Would I be correct in saying that?
Oh, yeah.
He threw a big monkey wrench in your plans.
I was named after my grandfather. I was the second, same middle name. Thank God I never got called Evil Jr. all my life. And, I'm the second, so I never made the money, got the marketing deals, but hopefully I bring all that back. Hopefully, the brand name and the years I've been out there, I hope a toy, a game, a lot of that stuff just comes back, and my name stays out there, and it can still use my footage, the jump footage to do commercials. You know, I'm hoping I live the rest of my life, and I don't want to make millions. If I do, great. Rich or poor, my dad always said, better to be rich. But, you know, if I made $10,000 for the rest of my life, once a month, I'd be happier than hell just to drive around in my bus, go to a campground and go fishing and play golf.
I was watching an interview from many years ago. It was yourself and Evel Knievel, your father, and Pat Sajak was a host. And you were about to do the Caesar's Palace jump. And he says, what do I call you? Do I call you Robbie or Evel 2? How long did it take you to outgrow the fact, I mean, you're always going to be Evel's son, but you had your own career. When people would make that a statement like that, I would imagine that would rub me the wrong way. How did you take that? How did you put up with that?
I had to laugh. You know, I just went along with my dad. He was the boss. He said there can only be one boss. He put Evel Knievel 2 in the Showtime contract. I should be able to use that name, Evel Knievel 2, whenever I want, because my dad gave it to me back in '89. But he wanted Evel Knievel on everything. But there was a Roman numeral 2. So the semi-trucks all of a sudden going to Australia had Evel Knievel 2 on them. My red truck I drove around Vegas for a year and a half had Evel Knievel 2 in gold leaf. And my dad would sit in Caesar's. He was a promoter from, you know, promoter from hell. He would have the guys, I caught him one day. He goes, Jim, go over to the house phone, page me. So he'd have these guys paging him all day long in the casino. Evel Knievel telephone, Evel Knievel telephone. That was my dad, you know. He wanted his name to live forever, and I'm keeping it out there.
Robbie, wrapping this thing up, through everything that you've done, and you're looking forward to getting back on your bike once your back heals up, why do you figure you were put here on Earth?
That's a good question. I think we were all fallen angels. I think we might have followed the high angel. Devil himself was a high angel. And I think God just wants love too, and it's like our second chance as in the blood and flesh to come back. I think we were spirits way back from the beginning. But that's kind of my belief, and I just feel like I'm in this spot. And life is short, so don't do everything stupid and be an idiot. You know, I mean, be good to people, love people before you die.
Robbie, ending up, what's the timeline on the back injury? I know that you had some impending trips, maybe to Missouri, maybe to Texas, to talk about jumps. What's next for you if everything goes well with the back?
Well, I'm looking at some commercials for a car dealership and a jump for them for that commercial in Dallas, Texas at a big Kia dealership, the Coolies. And New York, I got another jump. I hate to say them till they're signed, but the contracts are on the emails. And that's Niagara Falls, a casino up there, September 4th on a Sunday. And then October 8th, Charlotte Motor Speedway wants me for the first time for a big NASCAR race. I do jumps. I've done jumps at dealerships, casinos, all over the place. And then I got a guy in Florida, it's 20th anniversary since I jumped for him in New York years ago and shut all the highways down in upstate New York. Billy Fusillo, big Kia dealer. So, I don't know, maybe I'll get a key out of this deal along with some cash.
You know, speaking of speedways, I met your old crew chief, Bill Rundle, at Texas Motor Speedway about a year ago. It was last November. I was at the race, and I announced the drivers. Will you assemble the O team? Will you bring together a new team and put together a new bike? How will that process go?
Well, they quit making my bikes. I'm still jumping a 1998 CR500. They quit making them in 01, and I have one of those, so I have a backup wheelie bike. I get the suspension stiffened up a little more, and I still bottom out every time I do a 150-foot jump. My rubber is on the bottom of my fenders. So I was talking about suspension, and the heights I come down, I still bottom out. and I just got to hit the right spot at the top of the landing ramp, so I'm not as high coming down, and I get myself in a crouch just like you're landing on a ski jump. I think that's where my dad got all his, jumping the bikes, just from ski jumping.
One more question then. Your dad jumped a 4-stroke. You're jumping a 2-stroke. Preference over the 2? I mean, obviously the power curve to me, or the power band of the 2-stroke is different. Would you ever consider jumping some of the newer 4-stroke engines that is being used today in the dirt bikes?
I like the noise, the louder noise. I like it's a more powerful bike, the CR 500, the big bore. It's light, you get into a 4-stroke, you get a little heavier, and it don't make any noise. I don't like it. It's just like playing a guitar or the drums. You want to hear them. You want to get on a Harley and hear the pipes, So the Harley jump is going to be like, wow, this is going to be cake. I'm looking at 120, 130 feet with 2 cylinders. I'm not even going to hesitate. So, but I prefer the CR500s just because of the distance, the quickness, and the power band. And my gearing is so tall, my bikes are geared to do 95. And when you get going down the highway and thinking about hitting a 4-foot wide, 10-foot high ramp at 85, 90 miles an hour, I mean, that's fast. When I did the jump contest, I was pinned at 95. And I still hold the longest distance record with a 10-foot high ramp when I jumped against Eddie Kidd. We made the rules, and who are we to make rules? Well, he was the Evel Knievel in the UK. I'm Evel Knievel's son. We made rules and agreed on the height ramp we wanted, and nobody since 1994 has beat my 223-foot record. I jumped 231 at the Grand Canyon, but I had my ramp was way higher on the other side, so I don't count that.
What about this new generation of jumpers? Robbie Madison's, Ryan Mace, I might be getting his name wrong, Travis Pastrana. What do you think about the new generation that came really kind of out of the freestyle stuff that seemingly to me, through Larry Linkogel, the Metal Militia guys, started riding motocross, Brian Deegan, and he started doing the freestyle stuff and went to the extreme sports. Well, Evel was the grandfather of extreme sports. You were a predecessor to it. What do you think about the new school of jumpers?
I think Pastrana and Robbie Madison are excellent. They look at my jumps, old school, and no dirt, and the pavement, and the height of my ramp, and they're like, wow, I don't know, that's pretty ballsy. And there's only a few of these guys that cut in class compared to my father and myself. Not to brag, but we speak from our hearts. We love people, and we have something good to say to not only the people and the kids, but to the press. I mean, we have good things to say. These guys go out and do a jump. They have no show, and they have nothing good to say but brag about themselves, and they just aren't showmen. I turned my show into 30-foot flame projectors, concussion ball. It cost me $10,000 to put on a pyro show when I go do a show. I put on a show with music and everything else, and do a good wheelie show and dedicate it to the troops every time.
When you get together to put on a show, you want to give some words of encouragement, give some words to the crowd, and leave them with a message.
Right, exactly. And I do every time. I was a showman with my dad since I was a little kid, and my dad was a huge fan of the great Wallenda, the Wallenda family, the circus people, and he took a circus and put it into a one-man show. And that's what he was, and that's what I am, and I'm very happy about it.
And, part of the showman part of it, I mean, your father just absolutely loved Liberace, the way he would come in, suspended on a cable, fly over everybody, have the fancy robes, and just put on a fantastic show. So maybe he borrowed a few ideas from Liberace, because I know he's certainly an inspiration to your father.
Yeah, he loved Elvis. Elvis and him were together one time. And Elvis got the idea, vice versa, maybe, the belt buckle and the cape. They traded them ideas, and they both started wearing them both. But one of them had the belt buckle, one of them had the cape, and they both started wearing both of them. But, yeah, Liberace, my dad always just thought was a great showman, I don't know. What my dad did, and just I don't know what human being would ever think the thoughts he was thinking with Caesars and the Canyon and the promotions and the jumps. I mean, he is still the number one watched rated television show in the history of wide world of sports. And Frazier and Muhammad Ali were second. My dad had more viewership. But it's just so sad about Muhammad Ali. I got the privilege of being at his house and spending a couple hours with him with my dad. What a humble, nice man. I just really looked up to that guy.
He was amazing. What was he like to hang around with? He was
just humble and mellow. I ran into him in an airport in San Diego once, and he sat there and talked to me for 15 minutes back in the mid-'80s. Just a great guy. And my dad told him in 79 when we went to his house, "Are you going to fight again?" And Ali says, "Nope, I'm done. No way." My dad says, "Oh, yeah, you will." And they toss that back and forth for a few minutes. And then he fought Holmes again in 1980, and that was his last fight, I think.
Was there anybody you looked up to, Robbie, other than your father, just from an athletic standpoint, or had heroes?
You. I really enjoyed hanging out with you. Just Sugar Rays, always Sugar Rays, Hearns, Haglers, Boom Boom was my buddy. Just all the fighters. Evander Holyfield took golfing once before his title fight back in '89. Just great guys, all of them, I thought. Mr. T, he was just amazed that he was shaking my hand. I was like, "Are you kidding me? You're my hero, man."
Robbie, at all the places that you've been, you ended up in Las Vegas. How did you end up in Las Vegas?
Oh, I lived here 27 years ago when I came here to jump Caesars. My dad's been bringing me here since I was a kid. L.A., I grew up all over. I used to hang out at the Rainbow and Roxy on Sunset with all the old rock and roll guys back in there, way back. And I always wanted to be a rock star. I played the drums. I played the guitar. And I'm glad I quit that and did what I did. Well, maybe I'm not now. But, I did get to be a rock star. I've sang with Bret Michaels twice. I've sang with Brian Howe and Bad Company, walked away from the microphone at a concert and let me sing Bad Company after a jump. I've sang with Marshall Tucker Band. Dee Snider rewrote Born to Be Wild for my reality series, Knievel's Wild Ride. I sang that with him in Daytona. So I got to live the rock star part too, along with, I call my show a, hippie comic friggin' fun tour, All we do is laugh sometimes until our guts fall out, because there's so many stories, and we all get together on the road. My crew, my same crew chief, Spanky Spangler, the ex-Green Beret, Golden Gloves, stuntman for years, is still lining up my ramps and making sure they're built right. I run around and do the PR for a week like no other entertainer, so I promote everywhere I go.
Hey, man, it was good hanging out with you, and it was good talking to you.
All right, Steve, thanks a lot.
This has been a PodcastOne production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Yo, what's up, guys? This is NBA champion Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Bobby Portis and the Bucks. Inside, Portis for the slam.
Here with my brand new podcast, Keep It a Buck. Each week, me, AB, and Barrette.
It's your boy Blessed Up AB, man.
They call me Baby Tay, they call me Red Tay, they call me Barrette.
We'll be talking to special guests from fellow athletes, celebrities, and friends from all walks of life. And we'll keep it a buck. So you saying you better than J. Cole?
J. Cole. Cook J. Cole.
J. Cole, nice though.
My floater is Hall of Fame.
Knocking your game.
They got to watching guys like Chris Middleton and Giannis, like watching these guys like 300 makes a day.
Not, and I'm not talking about just shots.
Make.
It just ain't gonna come just because you dreaming about it. You gotta actually make it into a reality. You gotta speak it into existence. You gotta make your daily deposits every day.
Ooh, lunch meat.
Download new episodes of Keep It a Buck every Thursday, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Keep it a buck. Peace.